Claire Lambe. I'm a painter and I'm here in my studio in Woodstock, New York, where I'm preparing work for an exhibition that I'm having in Saugerties, New York, which is just a few miles away, and that's opening this coming Saturday, April the 2nd. So I'm very busy preparing the work for that, and I'm doing a lot of some of it is displayed up here behind me, but it's still mostly in progress. I'm still mounting and cutting and gluing and cutting my finger and getting doing all the preparation to present the work on the gallery wall. The exhibition will be at the Cross Contemporary Gallery in 81 Partition Street in Saugerties, and it's actually a three-person show. The other two artists are Marianne Eriksson and Laura Hexner. The work that I've got is from a 4-month sojourn in Costa Rica. I spent the winter there, and I went there specifically actually to find to create a new body of work and to be in a new environment and to find like new things that inspire me. And the thing that I found, paradoxically, I'm in this beautiful environment, and the thing that really starts to draw my attention is, in fact, a lot of construction, and also, in fact, of course, the vegetation. You can't ignore that, and how the vegetation and the construction interface. There's a lot of building going on in Costa Rica of land. They're kind of land grabs in a way. You could say, the best pieces of coastline, and the best views and the best beaches. And at the same time, there are a piece up here called Midas, and it's actually in two parts. I'm still working on this. It's still got to kind of come together. One of the things, of course, the issues I had to deal with as somebody who was making work abroad, I had to make work that I could actually bring home. So some works I made in parts, in two parts. I mean, a lot of work was going to be not too big, so it could actually fit my suitcase. I'm imagining something. Well, it's called Midas, and it's got a lot of gold on it, and the figure at the very top actually is inspired by the developer who showed us around the this huge construction site 360, and this fellow here is in fact the developer, and the other guys were just two people who just happened to be there, and everybody kind of becomes if you like a character in play in but in this case, he's pointing out, he's more or less, he's showing the guys the fantastic views, and there's this kind of whole sense of ownership, that basically we own these views, and so this is a very straightforward example of aspect of the work, whereas this is obviously a little bit more surreal. But he had this at one point. He was doing a lot of this, reaching his hands out. Let me just put this back down. He was reaching his hands out, and to demonstrate how much you will have. You will have this view, and we'll have this, and and there was a lot of this kind of movement. So much later, when I was thinking about this painting, I kept having this vision of him up there on top of his edifice. Like the king of the castle, I suppose, and the sense of, for me, the last place I'd want to be is right up top of a kind of skyscraper, with the beach miles and miles below, and I just kind of thought that what if he runs out of money? Will this also become a ghost construction? And it started making me think of Midas and the Midas touch. And well, there's going to be two other artists in the show, and we're all in some way, all the work is in some way connected to construction. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about them. One of the artists is Marianne Eriksson, who does a lot on kind of nostalgia. So whereas I'm kind of really looking towards an imaginary future, I guess, and a present to the future. She's kind of looking back on a world that is disappearing, like the vanishing roadside. I think she is calls the body of work she's doing. And the second artist is a woman called Laura Hexer, who's actually, I don't really know her work that well, but she does a lot of drawings and paintings of like monumental architectural, feats like the Hoover Dam and great overpasses and so on. Painting, and and up here I've got all of these animals, all going in the same direction, and it's obviously inspired by cave painting and Lascaux, which was a place I had the good fortune to visit a number of years ago. And then also like the hands are really fascinating. I think that you come across in different caves. People have sprayed pigment around their handprints, and so we've got these handprints going right back to I guess the first artists that we know of. And one of the aspects of my work is also this, and it is comes into the work that I did in Costa Rica as well. This kind of fear I guess that we have of climate change, and what's how our priorities are maybe a little bit screwed up, that we're putting a lot of energy into building large buildings when we should really be building small buildings, and we're not taking care of our environment, and we're not taking care of our posterity. So with this, I see I can take off some of the thing, but it's the lower part of the painting is still very much being.
Now that's delightful.
Thank you. It still has a long way to go, actually.
But you have to finish it soon.
I have to finish it soon. Actually, I'm going to be working on it this afternoon and tomorrow.
Wow,
and
I'm beautiful work in progress.
Thank you. I'm working in acrylic, so which is really great because that dries really fast, and I don't have the issues I would have with the oil. I couldn't do this in oil and expect to have it done by the weekend. But all the whole upper part and a good deal of the lower part was done before I left, and I'm kind of, I suppose, thinking about what we're leaving for our children, and I call it our child because it's basically everybody's child, and whether you have children or not, it's your it's the future of mankind. And so I'm kind of thinking about going right back, of what can be lost if we fail, and it seems to me that if we fail, and that's okay, I guess, if nature wins, so long as we don't basically blow up the whole shebang and nobody wins. But at the same time, if humanity fails, then everything is lost. Everything going back to the beginning of time as our time, our existence on the earth. And so this is one of the things that I was exploring here in this. I'm going to explain how I make these particular paintings, the palm fronds. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is just a little smidgen about my background as an artist, which is that as an undergraduate, which was I was a student at the NCAD, the National College of Art and Design in Dublin, and I specialised in printmaking. And in printmaking, you're often working backwards. You're painting things in black, for example, if you're doing etching, that are going to be ultimately white. So you have to kind of be able to get your head around that. And also the other thing I did a lot was silkscreen print, and in silkscreen print you're cutting out a lot. You're cutting out a lot of so you're making stencils and so on. So some of those ideas I took out of printmaking, and I've used them over the years in my work, and this particularly is true in this case. This painting is constructed kind of like back to front in a way, or it's going like from front to back and then back again. And what I mean by that is that the very first colour that went on would have been this pale greenish yellow, when I paint it, like I
So
just
that's the foreground.
That's the foreground, yeah. I mean, it's the foreground that then gets becomes like a background, and then becomes foreground again at the end. And how that happens is I paint it on, okay, in a kind of traditional way, but I'm just like putting it on like you paint a wall maybe, kind of. I'm trying to mix the colours up so it's not too flat. And then using like tape, I cut out all of these shapes of the palm fronds, and I kind of I just put them on, like a piece here, and then I add all these leaves on in this particular composition.
So you're putting tape on top of the...
I'm masking basically. I'm masking off sections of this pale green. And then once I've got that done, then the next thing I might do might be having laid down this initial thing, these two sets of palm fronds who are coming to meet each other. The painting's actually called The Meeting. Then I go to my next colour, a little bit of a darker green, and I just kind of like paint on. Now I've masked off all these palm fronds. They're held, and I just like paint over them. Paint like with this other colour green. And then I come in with my next set of masking. And again, I've gone over there with the scalpel, and I've cut out loads of little shapes, the shapes that I want, in this case these leaf shapes, and I'm adding these in. And then I come again with another colour. Here you can see there's a kind of like an orangey. Sometimes you get things that are actually dying, leaves that are dying. So I'm kind of putting in like some like orangey, yellowy colours, and then I mask those out. And in the meantime, I'm painting over the masking tape. So and it's all getting messier and messier and messier as I go. And so finally I've kind of like loads and loads of green, and I've like masked off all these different things, and put in a bit of other colour here, and the sky. And there's two figures here, I don't know if you can see them. And there's also a piece of stone here. And actually, there were so many signs for things being for sale that actually it says Savende. It's kind of hidden by the palm fronds. And this figure, this particular figure, which is a blonde woman, in a long dress and so on, is actually taken from the film of Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead, as a matter of fact. And then the other figure, I just put those figures together. I didn't really, and they're right in the foreground now. The whole figure is there. Again, she's not hidden behind palm fronds or anything. I painted the whole thing, the whole dress, and I put this little composition together there, right in the foreground. So then the painting is, that part of the painting is finished. Now, before the tape, which I've been putting on layer by layer by layer and painting over, and layering, painting, layering, painting, layering, painting. Now I've got to take off all that tape, and I have to do it in a fairly timely fashion, because I don't want the tape to become embedded in the painting in such, so that I can't get it off at all. So then I start peeling away the tape. But now, as you can see, I've got this whole background thing. The thing that I painted first, that's in the foreground, is at this point is now right in the background, and the thing that's in the background, who are the two figures, are right in the foreground. So, but as I start painting, it starts going back again, and eventually, when I've taken all the tape off, the painting is revealed, and in a way, it's it's really I don't know what's going to come out, how it's going to work out. I don't know if it's going to be successful, or it's going to be a mess, or if it's going to really work. And but what happens then is that everything that was originally in the halfway through the process in the foreground is now in the background, and all that original foreground stuff that got to be in the background is now brought back into the foreground again. And it's very complicated and probably confusing, but all I can say is that how it comes out, I don't know how it's going to come out. It's I don't know if it's going to be great or it's going to be terrible. And it's actually part of the what's fun in the process is that I also get to be the person most surprised, actually, because the viewer is being presented with the end product. And that's what's actually.
That's absolutely delightful.
Thank
I'm not
you.
sure I understand it, but it sounds delightful. It sounds like a delightful process.
It's exactly. It's one of the things that's people talk about different kinds of art, process-based art and ideas-based art and like narrative art and blah blah. I guess my work is really takes a bit from all of these things. But this is probably the most processed.
Is it your own kind of formula, or do you know other people who do this? Or?
I don't really. Well, I suppose people, they like using masking tape in different ways. I mean, it's I wouldn't like to kind of claim it as my own. I don't know anybody who works in precisely this way with it, or to this extent with it. So I'd like to think that it's unique, but like these days, you might walk into a gallery and you see your own work looking back at you with somebody else's name on it. It's like so anyway, these are like very interesting pieces to work on, and I hope people like looking at them as much as I liked making them.